going to show how to prepare the cabbage. We used to blanch it in hot water and stand there and have the water splash us and everything. Well, once I was visiting my son in Oregon, and a chef came in and asked me, "What are you doing?" And I was boiling it and preparing it to make cabbage rolls. And he says, "Why is your mother doing that? All you have to do is put them in the freezer. Once they're frozen, thaw them out, and your leaves are already ready to go. They're soft." Think of when you have a piece of lettuce that freezes, how it gets wilty and soft. And that's what I do. So I've learned that whenever cabbage is on sale for 50 cents a pound, or when it's in the season and they're just picking them from the farm, I get them, I put them in a plastic bag, just a thin plastic bag, and I stick them in the freezer. You gotta leave them in at least 48 hours to really freeze all the way through. I just cut around the core. When the leaves fall off, I just put them in the pan. That's about how easy it is, and it does work. I usually take them out the night before and set them in the sink. Like I say, when they were on sale, I buy several. I make packages of them, and I freeze it. Next, I want to show you how to prepare the leaves. So any place there is a thickness, I take a sharp knife and I just cut out some of that thickness there where the stem is. I thin it out a little bit, cut the little piece off, and I've got a nice one. Now this one's big enough, and I make small cabbage rolls, that I cut it in half. So that makes a nice cabbage roll. I'll put the meat in here, roll it, I tuck it in a little bit, and then roll to the thinner part of the leaf. A smaller leaf, if it has a thick back, I again cut out some. All I'm doing is thinning this piece so it's easier to fold over and roll. So I'm just cutting a thin piece off, and this is a very nice one to roll. I'll put the meat and rice in there, roll. I always fold one side over and then roll into the rest. That's how I prepare my leaves. When I freeze them, I'll take them and lay them on top of each other till I get a nice sized pile. Put them flat into a plastic baggie. Put all the baggies together, and then I stick them in the freezer. Mark them with the date. Not that it matters, they don't spoil at all. There's another big one. I'm going to cut it in half, and that'll be part of this pile. My favorite is the green leaves, so I do leave those whole because I love the dark cabbage. Cut off the hard part. Since I like the dark green one, I put the meat in, and I like a lot of cabbage, and I do it the same way. I just fold the piece over and I keep rolling it until the whole leaf is used. And I want to show you what I do with the center of the cabbage. I've opened leaf after leaf. Careful not to pull it off of the main stem. Now my mom used to call this, and some of my cousins and older relatives will remember, she called it a JJ. I have no idea why, because in Arabic JJ means chicken. But it's just the center. I'm going to take a knife and I'm going to cut out the center part, trying not to cut these leaves. Then she would fill it with the stuffing and carefully, one by one, fold the leaves over the meat. She'd close it all up, one leaf at a time. You might not have to have as many foldovers as I have, because some of these bigger ones could still be used to roll as individual cabbages. But I'm probably going to be freezing this, so I'm going to roll them all over. When I thaw it out, I'll very carefully leave it set until it's thawed enough that I can open them. Now imagine this filled with lamb and rice and cooked in the juices. Delicious. Now these little centers, I don't throw anything away. I'll probably take it, slice it, saute it with some carrots, and have it as my vegetable tonight. Now this is ready if I'm making cabbage tonight. I usually do this ahead of time. I freeze my leaves, and if I'm freezing this, I put it in a separate bag and freeze it. Now I'm saying freeze it because I get the cabbages ahead of time, even before I have the meat, and prepare them and have them ready to be able to roll when I want to make cabbage rolls. I'm preparing all my ingredients to make Lahaneh cabbage rolls. I've got 3 pounds of lamb that I've ground and prepared myself. As you can see, there's a little bit of fattiness in it. I'm going to wash it all in cold water several times until it runs clear. You can use any long grain rice, but I like Carolina. I'm just running it under my sprayer, getting it all washed. I pour my rice over the meat, 3 cups of rice, and all I put in this filling, which is a basic filling that's used for cabbage rolls, kusa, stuffed zucchini, stuffed yellow squash, stuffed eggplant, and grape leaves. I'm putting about a tablespoon per pound of meat of salt. And I mix it all very well until all the meat is broken up and has rice around it. Some people put a little more rice than a cup per pound. Some put a little less than a cup per pound. I usually use a cup per pound of meat. You can also use this filling to make semanat, the rice and chickpea sausage. All you have to do is put a little more salt, because it does take more salt for that. It absorbs it and it boils out. So you put a little more salt, you put Syrian 7 spices, and a can of chickpeas, the Progresso large can of chickpeas, depending on how much you're making. So I'm mixing this very well. Sometimes the meat's a little dry, and to keep it moist, I have ice water, and little by little, as it dries, sometimes while you're rolling, it dries out, and you add a little bit of water to keep it moist. I wanted to show you how I did the inside cabbage ball that I told you about. I'm opening it up. I had cut out the center. Now I'll just take some of the meat, put it in there, a nice amount. The people who like the cabbage like this because there's more cabbage and it picks up all the juice that you're cooking it in. I usually put it in the bottom of the pot, putting all the rolls around the top of it. Sometimes I make 1 or 2 for each pot because my kids love them. I'm just folding over the leaves as they come. And there it is. Now, this one is a little small. I've cut it in half. It was a larger leaf. So I'm going to show you how to do the little ones first. I take a little bit of meat, put it at the top. The thin side of the cabbage is outward. Put a little bit of meat, bring it to the edge of the cut piece, tuck it under, start rolling. I roll it 2 or 3 times till I get to the wide part, then I fold it over and continue rolling. If there's too much meat, I just pull a little bit out, tuck it in. So that's about the size I usually make. I do make larger ones when I use the darker green and the larger leaves. This time I have a whole leaf, a little bit too small to cut. I put a little bit more of the meat in it. I will roll it slightly. I'll fold it over and roll it all. Now when I have that much cabbage, I just take and even it off. I leave one side open because then the juices flow into the meat and cook it. Some people close both sides, some people leave both sides open. I love the dark green leaves. Again, I put the tougher side on one side, fold over. It's a little harder, so you have to put a little bit more of the green in so that it stays closed. And then I continue rolling, and this is pretty good. I just even it off. There you are. That's how you roll them. I've got some nice neck bones here, or shoulder bones. I go to those. Usually they have them in the market, in the meat counter, or you can ask the butcher. I just ask for it to do meat. I rinse them off a few times. Get some of the blood off. And then I cover them with water. I'm going to bring them to a boil for about 2-3 hours. You want the meat to cook. I'm going to put these under my cabbage rolls. The bones came to a boil. I'm going to skim off the scum, but these didn't have very much at all. I'm going to pour up the water, the hot water. I've got cold water on, so the steam isn't too bad. I just want to wipe all the scum off the side. Rinse the bones off. I'm going to cover this with water again, put it on the stove to boil some more. After the water starts to boil, I'll put it on simmer and let them simmer for about 2 hours. The bones cook for a couple of hours. I'm going to rinse them off in really cold water because I'm going to use them right away and put them under the cabbage rolls. I want to make sure that they're cold. Okay, I'm going to put the bones, the lamb bones, in the bottom of the pot. I didn't have very many this time, but it's enough. I'm going to take the big JJ and put it down in the bottom, in the middle. I have a little one I'm going to put to the side. And usually I take the dark green rolled cabbage and I put that down on the bottom because it's a little tougher and it'll cook a little bit better down at the bottom. I'm just layering them around the pot. I leave them upright so that when I pour the juice on it to cook them in, all the juice gets into the open tops of the cabbage rolls. Putting all the bigger ones and the darker green ones down near the bottom. I carefully make sure that they're all closed and put that closed side down. And I'm nearly done getting them all in this pot. The little tiny ones I kind of stick up in the middle on top so that they don't open up and get lost in all the juice. I'm almost done. A few more. I'm going to stick them in. Whoops. There it is, all stacked and packed. I'm going to take it over to the stove and prepare the sauce for the top. I'm going to grind the garlic. I've got about 3/4 of a cup of garlic. It's maybe 1.5 to 2 bulbs of garlic, depending on how much cabbage you're making. I do put a little water, grind it up. Some people leave it whole and put it in and then eat the garlic. I like to chop it a little bit. I make my own tamarind paste, and I have fresh mint, dried mint out of my garden, and I use citric acid to sour it. I've spread all the garlic over the top. I'm going to take about 1/4 cup of the dry mint and sprinkle it all over the top of the cabbage. I like it minty. I'm going to start with about 3 cups of tamarind. Gives it a good flavor. And I'm going to thin it out with some cold water. It's a little easier to spread over the cabbage. 1/3 of the cup of citric acid. I'm going to put that in there and stir it in. And I'm going to take all of it and pour it right over the cabbage. Pouring the sauce over. And I'm going to continue filling the bowl and covering all the cabbage completely with water. I'm pouring the cold water to fill it up. Make sure you use cold water only. Don't try to rush it by using warm water or hot. Pan's pretty full. I'll bring it to a boil first, and then I'll lower it to a medium. Next, I take a plate and I place it on top, and it'll hold all the cabbage down, so when it boils or starts to cook, they'll stay nice in place. I'm now going to cover it. I'll put it on high. As soon as it starts to boil, I'll take it down to a medium-low. It'll probably be ready to test in about an hour. We'll test one of them and see if the rice is cooked and if the flavors are okay. Well, it started to boil. So I'm going to lower the burner down to about medium-low. And then I'm going to put the cover back on and let it continue to cook. In about a half hour, I'll taste one and see. I checked the flavor. Wasn't quite as tart and tamarind flavored like I wanted. So I put about a half a cup more of tamarind. And then I'll try it again and see if it needs more of the lemon salt. I've taken the plate off because they're pretty solid, and I've lowered the burner so that it doesn't boil too much and loosen the cabbage rolls. So I'm just going to cover it and let it cook for about a half hour more, and then I'll test it. I wish I had smell-o-vision. It sure smells good. I'm going to try one and see if they're cooked. Ooh, that's a big one. We usually try a little one. I'm testing it for the flavor, the tartness, but mostly to see if the meat's cooked and if the rice is cooked. Looks pretty good. I'm just going to give it a taste. Okay, the pot's done. They're all cooked. I've tested them. The rice is cooked. And I'm going to take them out one at a time, put them in the tray, and then we're ready for dinner.